Xi has made it clear he plans to go solve the Taiwan problem while he is still in office. So he's 70 years old. Let's say he's got another decade. That's not a lot of time for us to think about how the world would be changed if Taiwan, the producer of 90 to 95% of our most advanced semiconductors, is under threat, much less invaded. And in a lot of the book, I spend time in Taiwan with Mark Liu, the chairman of Taiwan Semiconductor, trying to ask the question, does the existence of Taiwan Semiconductor, this gem in the middle of the island, create a silicon shield or not? Are the Chinese willing to risk the loss of production there, which would affect them as much as us?
So that's an interesting question, right? You and I think a lot about this because Taiwan, TSMC, is now more like 80% of global production.
That's right.
And in part, that's because the United States is trying very hard to get lots more production in the United States and with allies that are farther away from mainland China. At the same time, we've seen strict export controls against advanced semiconductors made by TSMC and other places, so that China can't have them. Now, one can argue that the American policy is making Taiwan less of a silicon shield. It's making Taiwan less indispensable to mainland China, making it easier for them. They have to now invest and build the stuff themselves in mainland China.
Sure.
So if they really want to take it over, American policy is precipitating that. Do you buy that?
Not entirely. So
you buy a little.
I buy a little bit of it.
Okay.
So first of all, I think what Biden has done here in the semiconductor field, trying to choke the Chinese of the most advanced chips, but also the equipment to make those chips, while trying to build up here, is the right step. And I think he had to go do it. A series of small and, I think, ill thought out business decisions made by companies, not by governments, moved that capability offshore from the United States over the course
20
of
years.
20 years
Yeah.
or more.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're down to 14% of global production, but most importantly, we don't produce the most high-end, the chips that are in your iPhone, the chips that NVIDIA is using for AI, those are all coming out of Taiwan Semiconductor. So the question is, what's the benefit and risk here? If all of the facilities that Biden has signed up are built in the United States, we will solve about 4% of our Taiwan problem. That's about it, because we're just not building at the scale at which we would need. And that's because Congress has allocated $52 billion, but sort of thought it was a one and done. And my own view is, if you're going to have an industrial policy, if you've made the decision you're going to put the government behind this,
go all in.
You've got to go all in. There's got to be money each and every year. Each semiconductor fabrication facility costs $15 to $20 billion to build. Now think about it. The last aircraft carrier that we built in the United States was the Gerald R. Ford. It was about 10 years ago. And after all the cost overruns, it too was about $15 billion. If you went to Congress today and said, our Navy is so shrinking compared to what the Chinese are building up, that we need 10 more aircraft carriers, I think you'd get the $150 billion, now probably $200 billion. If you went and said, we need another $200 billion in semiconductor fabrication facilities, I think people would yell, that's industrial policy, we can't do it.
They don't think it's military, right?
I would argue that for our long-term security, it is much more important to build those fabs than it is to build those aircraft carriers.